The night in the Roman camp never feels long enough. You close your eyes on a rough bedroll, only to be wrenched awake by the blast of a horn. The sound slices through the dawn mist, followed by the guttural bark of a centurion. His voice is less good morning and more, you're already late. You roll from the mat, bones aching, and realize something. You've already failed. Because in the Roman army, there's no such thing as easing into the day. You're awake, and immediately you're under command. First 5 minutes. Your first breath is smoke from campfires. Your first sight is soldiers already strapping on armor. And your first thought is the sinking realization that you're not built for this. Every move is watched, every delay punished. You don't tie your sandals fast enough? That's a flogging. You don't stand in line straight? That's a shove. Maybe worse. Survival here means obeying before your brain has even caught up. And you, dear listener, would struggle before breakfast. The camp's brutal rhythm. Roman camps weren't places to relax. They were machines of discipline. Rows of tents set with mathematical precision. A ditch dug around the perimeter every night. No matter how exhausted you were from marching. Fires set, guards posted, weapons checked. And all of it enforced by centurions. Men whose job wasn't just to command, but to terrify. You don't respect them, you fear them. Their vine staff cracks across backs as easily as it points toward the horizon. This is why you wouldn't survive. Because survival here isn't about strength. It's about surrender, to the rhythm, to the fear, to the endless grind of order, the weight of expectation. From the moment the horn sounds, you're not a person anymore. You're a body in a machine. You must rise, clean your kit, check your armor, stand in formation. Even before battle, even before training, your day is swallowed by rules. Rules that crush individuality. Rules that reward silence and speed. And if you think you'd be the one who resists, who smirks, who slacks, who shrugs, the Romans already had a place for you, at the wrong end of the centurion's staff. And just a quick pause here. If you're still with me in this camp, don't forget to like this video, only if you're enjoying it so far. It helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it right now? I'd love to know who's surviving this night with me. Now, back to the horns. As the sun rises over the Roman camp, you're already drenched in sweat. Not from fighting, not from marching, just from surviving the first hour. The day hasn't even begun, and you're broken in spirit. That's the Roman genius. They don't wait for the enemy to wear you down. They break you before the battle starts. And that, my friend, is why you wouldn't survive a single day in the Roman army. The horn has barely stopped echoing before you're ordered to march out of camp. Not to battle. No, that would almost be merciful. Today is for training. And in the Roman army, training is worse than war. Why? Because war at least ends when someone dies. Training never ends. Your body is already stiff from sleeping on hard ground. Your stomach is nearly empty, just a chunk of bread and a sip of sour wine. And now, onto your shoulders, they dump the weight of your survival. 40 to 50 kilograms. That's the standard load. Armor, shield, sword, spear, rations, tools. Enough weight to crush you before you even take a step. Wooden swords of death. But don't think you'll fight with your actual sword just yet. That would be too easy. The Romans had a trick. They trained with rudis, heavy wooden swords, sometimes twice the weight of the real thing. You grip it for the first time, and it already feels impossible. Swing once, your arms ache. Swing twice, your shoulders scream. And you realize quickly that if you can't handle this, the centurion will make sure you handle pain instead. Every thrust, every block, every parry, repeated until your muscles give out. And when they do, you're beaten for weakness. Marching until collapse. As if the sword drills weren't enough, the next command comes, march. Not a casual stroll 20 miles, often more in full kit. The Roman word for it was iter. You call it torture. The sun is already burning down. Dust clogs your throat. Sweat stings your eyes. But you keep moving, because anyone who lags is shoved forward with the butt of a spear. Blisters bloom on your feet. Your shoulders go numb from the pack. The shield edge bites into your arm, and still the centurion shouts, faster. You start to wonder, is this training or punishment? The purpose behind the pain. Here's the cruel genius of it. The Romans knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted you broken in training, because a broken man in war is already dead. Every drill, every march, every punishment isn't about fighting the enemy. It's about fighting yourself, your hunger, your exhaustion, your despair. And for most recruits, that's the real enemy. Sardonic reflection. You thought joining the Roman army meant glory, gleaming armor, heroic speeches, maybe a feast after victory. Instead, you've been handed a wooden sword that feels like lead, a pack heavier than your own body, and orders shouted so loud they drown out thought. Would you last a day, or would you collapse on the roadside, trampled by your comrades, forgotten before the march even ends? By the end of training, your arms are jelly, your feet raw, your lungs clawing for air. And yet, the day isn't over. You've only survived the morning. You're learning quickly, in the Roman army, the fight isn't just against enemies, it's against the crushing, endless training gauntlet that makes sure only the strongest or the most broken remain. And you wouldn't survive it. Fear over strength. By now your body is sore, your shoulders raw from the weight of your shield, and your feet a patchwork of blisters. You thought the worst was behind you after the endless marching and the brutal drills. But in the Roman army, exhaustion isn't the problem. Weakness is, and weakness is punished. The Romans built their legions on discipline, not mercy. Strength wasn't measured in muscle alone, but in obedience. Instant, unquestioning, total obedience. And if you faltered, if you stumbled or slowed, or showed the slightest crack in the armor of your endurance, then punishment waited, swift and merciless. Because here's the truth. The Romans didn't just lead with authority, they ruled with fear, and fear was the one weapon sharper than any sword. Survival POV, under the centurion's eye. You've been stumbling through the drills all morning, your shield keeps slipping, your sandal straps dig into your ankles, and your wooden sword feels twice as heavy as it should. You think maybe, just maybe, you can get away with easing up for a breath. But the centurion's eye is everywhere. He sees the falter in your step, he hears the slack in your rhythm, and before you can catch your breath, the sting of his vine staff cuts across your back. It doesn't matter that you've already been pushing yourself to collapse. It doesn't matter that you're bleeding in your boots. The punishment is instant, impersonal, and final. The staff cracks, your back flares with pain, and your only thought is humiliation. The other recruits laugh, not because they're cruel, but because they're relieved it wasn't them. That's how survival works here. Your suffering is their temporary safety. Flogging an endless duty. You might think punishment is reserved for desertion or treason, but in the Roman army, it's as common as bread. A crooked formation, a flogging, a dirty spearhead. You haul water until your hands blister. A loose strap, you dig ditches through the night. And if your centurion is feeling particularly creative, he might order you to clean the latrines, not once, but for a week. Imagine crouching over pits of waste, scraping and hauling while the rest of the camp jeers. The genius or cruelty of the Roman system was that punishments were endless. Pain wasn't the point, fear was. The army made survival feel like failure, because no matter how hard you tried, you would always fall short of perfection. The spectacle of fear. The punishments weren't just for you, they were for everyone watching. Each flogging, each lash of the vine staff, each humiliating core was a spectacle, a warning to the others. This could be you. Even small mistakes were exaggerated into public theatre. The soldier nodding off on guard duty wasn't just punished, he was beaten bloody in front of his comrades. Falling asleep meant death for the whole camp, so the lesson was written in bruises, and as you watch, as you listen to the crack of leather, you realize something chilling. The Roman army didn't just fight battles, it rehearsed cruelty every single day, the terror of decimation. And then comes the darkest punishment of all, decimation. Your unit has been accused of cowardice, perhaps for retreating too quickly, perhaps for muttering about rebellion. The commander doesn't need to prove it, he simply orders the ritual. You and your fellow soldiers are lined up in ranks. Silence hangs heavier than armor. Lots are drawn. 1 in every 10 is chosen. And it doesn't matter how brave you were yesterday, or how loyal you are today. Fate has spoken. If your name is called, your own comrades turn on you. Not because they want to, but because they must. They beat you to death with clubs, stones, whatever lies at hand. You beg, you scream, you plead for mercy, and none comes. The rest of the unit returns to duty, shattered. They march with haunted eyes, their loyalty welded by terror. Historical aside, fear as discipline. Ancient writers spoke openly of these punishments. Polybius described how soldiers were whipped for minor offences, and Josephus recorded entire legions broken by decimation. Vigicius, writing centuries later, praised the fear as the reason Rome's armies never crumbled. For the Romans, cruelty wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. Punishment wasn't about justice, It was about survival of the machine, and if a few broken bodies kept the gears turning, Rome considered it a fair price. Survival POV, the waiting game. Imagine yourself standing in that line, waiting for decimation. You feel sweat sliding down your back, your stomach turning to stone. You hear the shuffle of feet as names are drawn. Every heartbeat is a drum. When a soldier next to you is chosen, you exhale, relief, guilt, horror, all at once. You watch him die, knowing tomorrow it could be you. That's the Roman army, survival one day at a time, never guaranteed. Psychology of fear. What does this do to a man? It hollows him out. You stop fearing the enemy beyond the walls. You fear your officers, your comrades, the rules that hang like storm clouds. The enemy could kill you, but your own army could destroy you at any moment. For failure, for disobedience, for chance. You live in a prison without walls, where punishment keeps you marching long after you want to quit. So you lie awake at night on your bedroll, welts still raw, the sting of humiliation still burning. The sound of laughter echoes in your ears, the crack of the vine staff ringing like thunder in your memory. And you realize something chilling. The Roman army didn't need to fight you. It broke you long before the battle began. This is why you wouldn't survive. Not because of enemies with swords and spears, but because of the endless punishments, the constant weight of fear pressing down until obedience is the only thing keeping you alive. And tomorrow, it all begins again. The long march to terror. The sun hasn't even climbed high, but you're already drenched in sweat. The drills, the punishments, the endless weight of survival, they've all been building toward this moment. Because today, you don't train in camp, you form the battle line. This is the test, not just of your body, but of your soul. And if you think the worst is behind you, no, the Romans saved the true misery for the moment before steel meets flesh. Standing in line, you're shoved into formation, shield pressed against your arm until it throbs. On your left and right, men you hardly know press close, their shields overlapping yours. Your world narrows to leather, wood and sweat. The horn sounds, the centurion shouts, and suddenly you're no longer a person, you're part of a wall. A moving, breathing, groaning wall of men. The weight of the shield bites into your shoulder, the heat under your helmet stings your scalp, the leather straps dig into your chin, and you realize something chilling. You're not fighting yet, but you're already suffocating. The testudo and the wall of flesh. The first command, testudo, the tortoise formation. Shields lifted overhead, locked together in front, a shell of wood and iron. It sounds impressive, invulnerable even. But from inside, it's a coffin. The air turns hot and stale. Sweat drips from the man above onto your neck. Your arm trembles under the shield, and if it dips, you don't just fail yourself, you expose everyone. The centurion prowls the line, watching, waiting, daring someone to falter. You feel your strength slipping, your breath shortening, and you wonder, will the enemy kill you today, or will your own exhaustion do it first? The drums and the noise. And then comes the noise. The steady pounding of war drums, a rhythm that turns fear into dread. The blare of horns commanding you forward, the shouts of officers, the clatter of iron, and beyond your line the enemy screams, high, wild, inhuman. They pound their shields, wave their weapons, curse your gods. The noise is designed to break you before swords even cross. You thought you could face battle calmly, but your heart is already sprinting, your mouth dry, your hands slick on the shield grip. The smell of war. And then the smell hits. Sweat and fear, leather and iron, but also blood. You haven't seen it yet, but it's there. The iron tang in the air from wounds, from slaughter, from years of fighting. The battlefield never really smells clean. Add to it the stench of horses, the dust kicked up by thousands of sandals, the sour rot of spoiled rations in the heat. You can't breathe, but you must. You gag, but you can't show weakness. The weight of waiting, perhaps the cruelest part isn't the noise or the stink, it's the waiting. You stand in formation for what feels like hours. Your shield grows heavier, your arm numb, your knees trembling. You can't sit, you can't rest, you can't even scratch an itch. The army demands stillness. The centurion's eyes are daggers. Any sign of fatigue earns a lash of the vine staff. And so you stand, sweating, shaking, suffocating in silence. You think you'll welcome the charge just to end the torture of waiting. Survival POV. The advance. Finally, the horn blares. The line lurches forward. Sandals pound the dirt in rhythm. Your shield jolts against your shoulder as the man beside you shoves in step. Forward, forward, forward. Every part of you wants to run away. But there is no away. There is only forward. The weight of Rome itself pushes you on. And that's when you see them. The enemy line, shields raised, weapons gleaming, faces painted in war paint or twisted in fury. You realize with a jolt, they want to live too, and they'll kill you to make sure they do. The clash, the moment of impact, is chaos. Shields slam together with a crack that rattles your teeth. Spears jab, swords thrust, screams rise. You don't see faces anymore, just a wall of wood, iron and blood. Your shield arm is numb, your sword arm shakes. You try to stab between shields, but your grip slips from sweat. Every thrust is a gamble, every second is agony. The centurion's voice rises above the chaos, ordering you forward, pressing you into the wall of death. You can't hear yourself think. You can't even feel yourself breathe. You are no longer you. You're just one more body in the crush. Historical aside, the machine of Rome. Ancient writers marveled at this discipline. To outsiders, Rome's formations looked unstoppable, a machine of flesh and iron. Polybius described the order. Vegetius praised the training. Enemies often broke before even reaching the shields. But from inside, it didn't feel like glory. It felt like drowning in sweat, fear and noise. Soldiers didn't win by being heroes. They survived by not collapsing in the line. And most new recruits, they didn't last. Sardonic reflection. You thought bravery would matter, that your courage would shine, that your valor would be tested. But bravery doesn't hold the shield. Obedience does. Fear does. The knowledge that if you falter, Rome punishes you worse than the enemy. And so you push forward. Not because you want to, but because you have no choice. Closing reflection. The battle line isn't about fighting. It's about being crushed, pressed, shoved into something greater than yourself, until you can't even tell where you end and Rome begins. And you realize in the heat and stink and chaos, this isn't survival, this is sacrifice. You wouldn't survive the Roman battle line. You'd be swallowed by it, body, mind and soul. The silence after the clash. The clash is over. The horns fall silent. The drums stop pounding. But the noise doesn't end. It only changes. Now you hear the groans of the wounded, the gasps of men choking on dust, the coughs of soldiers spitting blood. The ground is slick with sweat, dirt and worse. And you stand there trembling, shield slipping in your hand, realizing you're still alive. But in the Roman army, surviving the battle doesn't mean you've survived the day. You glance around. Some of your comrades are missing, cut down in the press, crushed under shields, left screaming in the dirt. Do you rush to help them? No, that's not how Rome works. The order comes to march, and you march. If your brother, your friend, your tentmate lies writhing in agony, the legion leaves him. A man too wounded to walk is a burden, and burdens are abandoned. You thought survival meant fighting hard. Here, survival means being useful, and the moment you're not, you're discarded like a broken spear. The food and water illusion. You stagger back into camp, hoping for relief. Bread, maybe. A sip of clean water. Something to remind you that you're human. But the rations are as cruel as the march. A chunk of coarse bread that breaks your teeth. A ladle of sour wine, more vinegar than drink. Water drawn from a ditch, warm and foul. You gag, but you swallow, because hunger is punishment enough, and thirst is worse. You realize quickly that Rome doesn't feed you to keep you happy. Rome feeds you just enough to keep you moving. The medical care. If you're wounded, the best you can hope for is a rough bandage, a cauterized cut, or a comrade stitching your flesh with a needle and thread meant for leather. No anesthetic, no mercy. If your wound festers, that's the god's judgment. You'll be left behind. A few muttered prayers, maybe a coin on your eyes if someone likes you enough. Otherwise, forgotten. And you know the worst part? Your death doesn't matter. Rome will replace you tomorrow. Exhaustion beyond measure. The camp doesn't rest after battle. Tents must be rebuilt, ditches dug again, fires lit. Even the wounded are ordered to haul wood or fetch water if they can still walk. Your arms shake as you lift stones. Your feet bleed inside your sandals. Every muscle screams for sleep. But sleep is a luxury Rome doesn't grant. You collapse beside the fire at last, staring at the stars, feeling less like a soldier and more like a corpse in waiting. Historical aside, Rome's indifference. Historians tell us Rome's genius lay not in mercy but in efficiency. Soldiers were resources, like grain or timber, useful when strong, discarded when weak. Polybius praised the discipline. Vegetius called hardship the greatest teacher. Josephus admitted fear bound men tighter than loyalty. And you, a recruit hoping for glory, you're just another number, a body to fill the line. Sardonic reflection. The glory myth. You imagined parades, laurel crowns, cheers of the crowd. That's what the poets promised. That's what the statues showed. But your reality is sweat-stained tunics, mouldy bread, broken feet, welts from the centurion's staff. You're not a hero, you're fuel, and Rome burns through you without a second thought. The fear of tomorrow. The worst part isn't today, it's knowing tomorrow will be the same. Another horn at dawn, another march, another drill, another punishment, another clash, day after day, until you're killed, crippled, or too broken to stand. Survival isn't measured in victories, it's measured in hours, in breaths, in how long you can keep dragging yourself forward while Rome grinds you down. Why you wouldn't survive, so as the fire crackles low and the night grows cold, you stare into the darkness and whisper a truth you wish you'd known before. You wouldn't survive a day in the Roman army, not because the enemy would kill you, not because you lacked courage, but because the Roman army was designed to crush the individual, to grind away every weakness, every comfort, every trace of humanity, until only Rome remained. And Rome never cared whether you lived or died,